Chapter 11. Cruel Seasons. Trish Wood, producer, director and investigative journalist, formerly of CBC's The Fifth Estate. She now hosts Trish Wood is Critical, a popular podcast on critical thinking. Trish Wood is an award-winning former science journalist, producer and director who started her podcast Trish Wood is Critical in May of 2020 to counter COVID-19 propaganda. She has hosted CBC's flagship investigative broadcast, The Fifth Estate, for 10 years, wrote an acclaimed book about the Iraq War, and produced investigative true crime documentaries, including Ted Bundy Falling for a Killer for Amazon Studios. She lives in Toronto, Canada. The following chapter is being read by the author, Trish Wood.
In March of 2020, just as the gates surrounding the free world were slamming shut, I sent an email to an American journalist I didn't know, but who had a reputation for critical thinking. Desperate to prick a hole in the ballooning lockdown narrative, I supplied him with strong evidence it was a dangerous mistake. It was an attempt to, perhaps, tamp down the COVID-19 hysteria that was setting up house in virtually all of our institutions, especially legacy media. Aside from a few outlying grumps like me, my former industry went all in on the government's obscene gambit of jacked-up fear messaging designed to scare us into obedience. Even the mighty Joe Rogan faltered briefly. Early in the pandemic, he interviewed Dr. Michael Osterholm, who downplayed risk stratification, suggesting all of us were vulnerable. It was an unfortunate misstep for Rogan, but he has since redeemed himself many times over, and he is one of the few who changed course based on clear-headed analysis. My email note, time-stamped March 18, 2020, warned of Dr. Anthony Fauci's history, dissembling and playing politics with pathogens and the humans they affect. It was based on my experience reporting on Fauci during the AIDS crisis. I had come away from that story traumatized by the death count and the callousness, ego, and incompetence of the man running the response. Here is part of what I wrote. Doctors and scientists are as vulnerable to groupthink, hubris, and greed as any other profession. Treating them as gods, not to be questioned, and handing them the reins to public health policy and the world's economy without accountability is absolute folly. I watch as every news program takes without question or accountability pronouncements that have no underpinnings in actual data. I had hoped that reaching out might prompt a phone call and a chance to discuss what I knew, but I never heard back. In fact, the journalist to whom I'd reached out kept his head down for 3 years, not questioning the official line and even publicly supporting vaccines. He was a dutiful narrative stitcher, like the rest of legacy media, who collected their paychecks by reporting uncritically whatever the government was saying. Media played along with CDC, NIH, and any of the seemingly hypnotized scientists developing a side hustle in television as talking heads, fawned over by facile anchors while working to buttress the official narrative. I suspect few of the media's go-to experts are worried about future funding, which flows from the very officials they avoided critiquing. The architects of the pandemic game plan needed the public to believe there was a consensus, that they were following something they called the science. Social media companies and legacy newsrooms were a critical component of this propaganda campaign. They also indulged in the dangerous censorship silencing of esteemed voices, bringing evidence that lockdowns were not working and were desperately harmful to humans and society more generally. That list is long and includes Jay Bhattacharya and Scott Atlas, both of Stanford University, an august school with big science credentials that continues to embarrass itself. Indie reporter Matt Taibbi called an email he discovered during the Twitter Files investigation devastating. Here is Stanford's Virality Project, which partners with
To listen to the remainder of this essay and the 33 other essays, please visit Amazon to receive your copy in print, ebook, or audio. Thank you.